to welcome State Representative David Gomberg. Thank you for taking time out of your very busy schedule to talk to us. You know, there's a lot of questions out there that I know you'll be able to answer. Just a housekeeping issue. If you, on the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat box. And if you will put your questions into the chat box, then I will ask the question so we're not all, you know, interrupting each other. And then if you've got a follow-up to that question, then unmute yourself and ask that follow-up question. But we'll start with that. So please put your questions into the chat box. So David, yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us.
Well, I'm very pleased to be with you all this morning, and my Chief of Staff, Tyler, is joining us as well, in case you come up with some really hard questions. And I think you can all see, yes, it's true, I'm growing a quarantine beard. I promised Susan that as soon as we start getting back out and interacting with people again, that it will come off. I was on a phone call with the governor at the beginning of the week. She said, David, you've gone fuzzy. And I said, yes, Governor, but as soon as you call us into special session, I'll cut it off. So I want to make sure we have most of the time for your questions, but I want to start with some big picture stuff. And the big picture is that we're hurting, that we are hurting as people are laid off. We are hurting as businesses are closed. We are hurting as families try to understand what their immediate future looks like and whether they're going to be able to pay the rent, buy food, cover their essentials, and take care of each other. Those are fundamental issues that we are facing right now, but we are facing them in unique and complex ways, more so here at the coast. The state economist has told us that the North and Central Coast is having higher economic impacts than other parts of Oregon. Here in Lincoln County, we have the highest unemployment in the state. And the surveys that our own chambers are doing, and it's not just Lincoln City, but throughout the Central Coast, is suggesting that as many as 1/3 of our businesses may not be able to recover. So those are the unique circumstances that we're facing. And when I spoke with the governor on Monday, I raised those issues. I said, we are hurting here. Our unemployment is higher. Our recovery rates are lower. And when we look at benefits that are going to be distributed throughout the state, I hope that we can weight them toward the areas that are hurting the most. Now, that's part of the challenge that we face. I'm going to add one more element to this, and that is that we are now starting to look at reopening. And we are having conversations about what that would look like. It seems that closing up is a lot easier, or was a lot easier, than beginning to reopen is going to be. I will tell you that I anticipate that we could hear from the governor this week about reopening our hospitals for non-critical surgeries and procedures. So that's going on. And we may start looking at some other kinds of businesses as well. But it gets very complicated out here on the coast because we have taken the steps of closing down our lodging. And if we choose to open our lodging up, that means that we potentially open the floodgates for people to come here from other parts of the state that might be at higher risk and bring those vulnerabilities, that potential exposure with them. And the worst thing that can happen right now is that we move too quickly and rather than slowing the curve, slowing the spread of the virus, that we allow it to spark up again. And that means that the difficult circumstances we're facing are going to drag on even longer. I'm happy to talk more about those things. I'm happy to talk about the emergency board that's meeting tomorrow, about some of the new executive orders, the strategy for reopening. But Lori, why don't we turn to you and your questions? You shared some with me earlier today. You sounded like you were particularly interested in a lot of our hotels and tourism facilities, asking, when can we get back to business?
Yes, I'm having a lot of calls from both sides of the issue. People that have reservations in May and June because they've got a specific date that they need to cancel by to get their money back. And on the flip side, I'm having calls from hotel owners saying, do I keep the reservations on the books? Do I have to cancel those? So yeah, a lot of people are concerned about what they need to do and when.
Well, I think the best answer for any business is to treat their customers the way they would like to be treated themselves if they were in similar circumstances. And that means sharing more information rather than less information, even when you don't have clear answers yet. So let me try and answer your specific question. and I'm going to give you 3 answers to it. The first answer is we don't know. We don't know whether whether we're going to continue on this downward stream and be able to open more quickly, or whether this is going to drag on any longer. The second thing I will tell you is, particularly in the case of lodging, the decision to close our hotels, our BRDs, our campgrounds was not made by the state. It was made by our cities and counties. So they are the ones that will make the decision to reopen. Although we legislators are meeting with county commissioners from up and down the coast, trying to talk about how we can coordinate that so that we all begin to open in a coordinated fashion. Because if we don't, if one city opens and another one remains closed, if one county opens, another one remains closed, then we've got a lot of confusion and a lot of problems. So coordination is very important when we talk about reopening. The third answer I've got for you is probably the most direct, but it's also the most speculative. And that is that the modeling that we have, that we're getting from the health and scientific experts, suggests that by this time next month, that we should begin to be able to reopen our facilities. So those are the best answers I've got. A, we don't know. B, it's not up to the state. It's up to your local city and county. And C, we're looking at mid to late May to be able to come out of this. If I were a lodging facility right now, I would tell people that are holding reservations to keep holding those reservations. We're hoping for the best, and we'll let you know as soon as we've got some clear, definitive news.
All right, thank you for that. So I know we've got Dave Price for a limited time today, and we wanted to go over the stimulus packages that are coming about. So the feds, I'm hearing, at least through Congress last night, they passed the additional federal packages. But I'm also hearing that there was that money went to counties with over 500,000. So I don't know, Dave, I know there's been a lot of kind of frustration and confusion over these loans. Can you shed some light onto that?
I don't know which Dave you were talking to, but let me start big and we'll work our way to local. And I've had frustrations that the money coming from the Fed seems to be going to larger small businesses rather than smaller small businesses. That the federal government defines small as under 500, and out here on the coast we regard normal as maybe 5 to 10. So I'm concerned about that. Statewide, about 18,000 businesses have qualified for support through EIDL or PPP, totaling about close to $4 billion. The money has been used up, but there's more money on the way. The average amount that a business in Oregon has gotten is $200,000. That's statewide. But David, I understand that we've had some success locally.
Yes, as of yesterday, actually as of this morning, we did a little quick tally. We've seen about 200 businesses since the start of this here in Lincoln County. 15 of them secured layoff aversion funds. We think 13 of them were connected with the SBDC before they got there. Another 15, maybe 20 have received either EIDL or PPP loans. We heard of 2 just this morning. And 1 actually in Lincoln City secured one of the almost impossible to get U.S. Chamber of Commerce loans.
Wow.
This is a client who I'm guessing saw Lori Arsatoras's emails about this and was one of the very few who actually got through when that system almost immediately crashed. And it's worth noting, this client believes they're receiving the money. They got an email, but they haven't seen anything yet. But that's the one success story we've heard on that front. But today has been a rare good day. We've heard a number of positive reports. One relatively large employer in Lincoln City just reported that they got their EIDL. I haven't seen the numbers yet. We got word of a $4,000 one last night and a $1,000 one this morning. And as I texted that client, I said, every little penny helps. Lori, about the coming stimulus, there's a few things I would just throw out there. Number one, don't wait for it to be passed by the House on Thursday and signed by the president Thursday night to talk to your banker. Talk to your banker now. There are some banks, Bo Smith from Columbia Bank reported that they probably won't be accepting new applications because they have so many in the queue that they're just going to push those forward as soon as the new funds are available. And we're hearing the same thing from other lenders. So you really don't want to wait for that. You want to go talk to your banker now. There are lenders in town. You know, U.S. Bank is a lender, Oregon State Credit Union, Oregon Coast Bank. And it's worth noting too that one of the big gripes that I have about this bill, like David was suggesting, is it went to very large firms. I mean, Shake Shack got $20 million. That's
Ruth Chris Steakhouse, yeah.
Ruth Chris Steakhouse did as well. And so there's $60 billion of this new influx that is earmarked for local banks, you know, the Columbias and Oregon Coast banks, the regional banks, nationwide. So I don't know how much is going to trickle to our Oregon ones, but at least that's a step in the right direction, right? And as opposed to JP Morgan Chase getting 90% of all the loans. And so I think there's hope there. I wish we'd seen it earlier. And we also, on our website this morning, I think we've got 8 different online sources. If your bank is telling you, I'm sorry, I can't process your loan app, there are a number of online sources that will do so. We have some local clients who are using Lendio. Some are using Square and PayPal because of their own POS systems. But you'll find links to, I think, 8 of them at our coronavirus resource page.
Well, I mean, Dave, that's encouraging news. I'm hearing we got a Lincoln City restaurant that got 18,000. We've got a Newport medical facility that got 50,000. We got a retailer in Newport that got 22,000. So there's bright spots and some people are breaking through, but overall, I think there's a lot more need than there are funds available. And as you say, if you're interested, don't wait, get in line now because it's basically first come, first serve.
I'm sorry, it is, and I'll stop talking, Lori, but it is absolutely been proven that it's act now and deal with it later. We've actually had a client who was honestly on the fence. I don't know whether the PPP is right for me because I don't want to worry about how much is forgivable and not, and it's really only a 2-year loan. So if you take on too much, you're going to be faced with some real burden. And at the end of the day, we counseled her, go for it because there's no penalty against prepayment. And once you have the loan, you can think about how you want to use it. And if you decide not to, put it in an account and write a check to the bank as soon as you are deciding that you're not going to do it. And there's no penalty for that. And so she went ahead and got $20,000 and successfully. So I would err on the side of applying if you're not sure whether it's right for you, because you can always decide to hand the money back.
You know, Lori, I'm gonna turn the page a little bit and talk not about businesses that are operating, that are trying to get the federal dollars and supports that are available. Rather, I want to talk about unemployment and particularly about people who are self-employed or contractors or gig workers and the experiences they are having in the unemployment claim process. And I'm hearing increasingly from people like that are saying, I understand that I now qualify. Remember, those kinds of people didn't used to be able to get unemployment, but under changing rules, they now qualify. If you're a self-employed, if you are a contractor, if you're a gig worker. The problem is that the software here in Oregon hasn't caught up with the federal changes. And so when those people apply, they get error messages. And the answer we are getting from the employment division is they should go ahead and apply anyway. This is the same message that David was giving you a moment ago. If you're interested in the loan, apply for it. If you're interested in unemployment compensation, apply for it. Even if you're getting error messages, get that into the queue. The software is catching up with the problem, and we expect some of that's going to move very quickly. The other piece of news that I want to share with you, and this is news that we should tell everybody, if you're in the process of looking for unemployment compensation and have concerns, error messages, you're not hearing back weeks after you submitted your claim, don't phone the division. Everybody is telephoning, the phone lines are jammed up, nobody is getting through. It's just going to make you crazy. Can I say that? It's going to make you crazy. If you have a question, the best process is to email it to them, because they are working their way through the stack of emails. They're backed up on emails as well, but they are telling us they expect to be able to respond to any email within 4 to 5 days. That's where they're at right now. If somebody emails in and does not get a response within 4 to 5 days, they should let our office know, and we will follow up on that further. And Tyler, I'm going to ask you to unmute and help me remember the email address. I think it was UI_COVID.
I just dropped it in the chat so everybody has it. It is OED_COVID-19_info@oregon.gov. And again, just to reiterate, if you are not hearing back and after just a few days, do email our office, and we'll see what we can do. We're trying to track those response times so we can make sure that people are getting in contact as they need to.
And I want to talk just about a moment about the unemployment process. You know, a month ago, the average number of claims in a given week was about 4,000. That shot up to 50,000 and then to 100,000. 100,000 a week versus 4,000 a week. And we've got over 300,000 people now that have filed claims for unemployment compensation. At the employment division, they had about 100 people working there. They now have 450 people working there, and they plan to add another 400. And they are working their way through the claims. The latest report that I saw indicated that they've worked their way through about 2/3 of the claims right now. And part of the problem is the federal government changes the rules, and the software is issuing error messages. Part of the problem is that you file a claim and it hasn't been processed yet. You come back in week 2 to file again, and you get error messages, and you're told to contact the division, and you can't get through to them on the telephone. Let's be honest and say it's a mess. I'm going to say that there are good people there. They're working as hard as they can. They're adding staff as quickly as they can. That's no consolation to good people in Oregon that are worried about how they're going to pay their bills. And, you know, if you work at $15 an hour, your unemployment compensation would be close to $300 a week. The federal government is now adding $600 a week on top of that. And we've also waived the traditional 1-week waiting period. So people will actually, well, they could potentially get more compensation from the employment division under the new rules than they were getting working full-time. The problem is that it's taking about 3 weeks for those checks to begin to arrive. So it's a cash flow problem. It's a cash flow problem for people that are out of work, and they're anxious and distraught and worried about whether they're going to get that check, whether the system is working, how they're going to pay their rent, how they're going to buy food for their family. It's a real serious problem, and I cannot understate it. I'm not going to excuse it by saying the employment division is doing the best they can. I'll simply say that they're taking all the steps they can to catch up and address the problem as quickly as possible. Bottom line, don't call, email the address if you have any questions, or if you talk to people that have questions. Lori, what else you got for me?
David, I've been hearing too that if you've received a rejection letter from your unemployment, that may not necessarily be the case. Keep applying, because if you're a self-employed worker, then, you know, even though you've got the rejection letter, don't take that as gospel. Keep applying. Don't
take rejection in this particular case. The other side of that is if you're an employer and you've laid off employees, you'll probably get an automatically generated letter that looks like a bill that says to you that that your payroll taxes may go up because some of your employees have had a change of status. That's not completely accurate either. It's an automatically formulated letter, and the process for payroll taxes is based on a 12-month average, not on spikes and dips in your employment coverage. And it's also based on regional and statewide numbers, not just on your individual circumstances. If employment taxes are going to go up, they're going to go up for everybody across the board, and not just a spike because maybe you're a restaurant owner that laid off more people than the police department did. So, other questions, Lori?
Yes, one from Marcy Baker. When can we expect to have guidelines on how restaurants and particularly bars will be expected to manage social distancing and operate through phase 1 with 10 or less gathered?
Marcy, I don't have a real good answer for you. I'd like to say soon. I know it's being worked on. I think the big question will be whether those new guidelines are rolled out on a regional basis. And when I say regional basis, I mean, will the rules be the same in the Pearl District, downtown Portland, as they are in Lincoln City or Hood River or in Sun River, where we have more local business or local clients as opposed to visitor clients? Tyler, have you heard anything additional on the issue of restaurant rules and social distancing? Because I know that the conversations are underway, but I am not hearing any time frame for new information.
There's a lot of moving pieces, and I think it's fair to say that we don't have an exact date yet. The latest that we have heard is that the governor not only is convening these regional kind of groups to look at it from that standpoint, but there's also industry-specific advisor groups. So the good news is that we actually do have restaurant operators and bar operators advising the governor and bringing those solutions directly to her. So she's getting input from the ground, and then of course, if any operators have suggestions or guidance, if those come to our office, we can pass them along as well.
Well, the other part of that is that a major player in these conversations are the leadership of the Oregon Restaurant and Lodging Association. So your trade representatives are at the table as well. That's kind of a non-answer answer, Marcy. The short answer is I don't know, but I know it's being talked about.
Marcy, do you have any follow-up questions on that? Go ahead and unmute yourself.
Yeah, I have spent most of my time racking my brain about what this is even supposed to look like. And with the market changing so much, not knowing if people are going to be comfortable even going out once places open, knowing that many restaurants that are bigger than what I run are not going to open during phase 1 because they can't take the risk of rehiring their staff, stocking their fridges, turning the lights on, marketing, reopening, just have to close at a second wave. Frankly, my bar probably 90% of the time had 10 or less people in it. So financially, I don't see that being a huge problem. The issue I have is, do I have to have people sit at tables? Do I have to have people wear masks? Do I have to monitor and not let people hug each other? Do I have to have tape on the floor? You know, how do people play pool? It's literally a social gathering business. So I don't really, is it going to be left up to what people are comfortable doing? And all I see, and with the people I talk to, there's more questions than I don't know. I don't know if there's going to be any point in trying to open during that phase. If I'm going to risk having, I hear OSHA's coming through doing inspections, shutting people down, and we don't have clear guidelines. The governor's mandate said that me, as an independent business owner, I need to go to the Oregon Health Authority and read through all of their guidelines and write my own new policies on social distancing, and I'm subject to be shut down if they're not correct. So that's how it is right now. That's why a lot of places aren't open for takeout and are just doing delivery, is they don't want to risk being shut down. And the OLCC just doubled everyone's licenses. So with my new off-premise that I have to do any beer right now, that's going to cost me an extra $400 plus my $400 license just went up to $800. So now I have to pay a $1,200 license by June 10th. Now, if I pay it by the 30th when my license expires, it goes up another $400. So all of us are expected to pay this fee and have no idea what a bar is even going to look like. And our licenses just doubled or tripled. So I
And
don't.
what Marcy's not telling you is that when we reopen the restaurant, she's going to have to go out and spend a boatload of money on fresh food.
I actually have food still. So I'm one of those people who's still open and I have food, so I could open and serve people the day I'm open. But that's part of why I'm trying to stay open.
Well, I think you've summed up the problems very well, and we're waiting to hear some of the answers to it. The only other thing I can say to you is this: that we have a concentration of small local dining establishments here at the coast. We've got our big chains, but we've got a lot of small independents, and you know, I always described my business as a torpedo boat moving in and out around the big battleships. That we're more maneuverable, that we're more flexible, and we have the ability to be more creative because we can adjust more quickly than larger brand chains can. And so, as I said at the beginning of this conversation, it's difficult to look over the horizon. The only thing I can promise you is that it's going to be different. But I think with creativity and hard work, we make those adjustments. And I don't want to sound like I'm just trying to spread icing on an empty cake. But
Well, I mean, that's pretty much what I've been doing, is being grateful for that I'm small enough that I can make all these changes. And I knew all the bigger restaurants were going to close because they can't run their kitchens on the staff they can afford to have. So they won't open until phase 2. But I'm just trying to be ahead of it and kind of figure out, okay, because my best guess is going to be, and I don't know what the National Restaurant Organization folks will say, but what I see is that the entire industry business model will have to change. It's going to be more expensive to go to a bar. It's going to be more expensive to sit down at a restaurant and have dinner, because our tables are going to be cut in half. Our chairs are going to have to pay for twice as much. And I'm trying to figure out how to do it in a way that still gives value to the customer, that doesn't feel like you're just ripping them off to try and stay open.
Yep. You want your customers to have fun.
Yep.
I get it. Lori,
So maybe private reservations. I mean, I'm thinking it could be reservation based. I'm considering getting a vacancy, no vacancy sign instead of an open sign. I don't really know. So.
Yeah, and David, another piece of this puzzle that I don't think we've gotten the answer to, once we get everything back up and running, will these restaurants need to be re-inspected before they can open?
well, again, I don't have a clear answer to that, but we're going to make a note and see what we can find out. And I hope that you can share that information with your members as soon as we get it, restaurant inspections.
Yep, absolutely. I don't see any other questions. So could you maybe expand on the whole OSHA inspections, or do you have really any information on that? Because I'm hearing that they're out there, they're doing inspections, but there's still questions on what the criteria is.
Sure. Well, the governor issued her executive order regarding social distancing, and a number of businesses were forced to close under that, and a number of others continued to operate. And the ground rule was that if you are open and operating, that if you do not follow the social distancing requirements, anyone could submit a complaint, and you would come and be inspected. So the process was largely complaint driven. And complaints could come from employees, they could come from customers, they could come from competitors, they could come from neighbors. That process was there to respond when complaints were issued. I am now hearing increasingly that OSHA is also doing spot checks. If that's going on in Lincoln County, I have not heard about it and would be interested to hear more. But I understand that that process is being initiated.
All right, thank you. So there's been a lot of questions around testing, of course. So can you kind of talk in that arena?
Well, testing. Yes, we need to test more. We've had a limited number of test kits available to do that testing with. So the medical community has kind of triaged by testing people who are showing the most serious symptoms and people that are working in healthcare or providing services that mean that if they should test positive, they might put more people at risk for example, people that are working in retirement and assisted living kinds of conditions. We have been doing a really good job in Oregon. That's the good news. The bad news is that because we're doing such a good job, the federal government didn't send us as many test kits. So we couldn't do a better job on testing. That's a little bit maddening. We're also hearing some encouraging signs. For example, the Department of Veterinary Medicine at Oregon State University has come forward with some testing options following a model that was also used at the, I believe, the University of Colorado. And so they are saying that they've got the ability to do 1,000 tests a week with their new tools, and they are working together with Samaritan hospitals, which of course are located in Albany, Corvallis, Newport, and Lincoln City. So there's more testing coming online. I certainly hear from people who say we need to test everybody. And let's be honest and say that's not practical, because you could test today and get a negative, and that doesn't mean that you won't get exposed tomorrow and need testing all over again a week from now. So there's some value in reserving our limited number of tests to people that are showing symptoms. The downside of that is that you don't often show symptoms for a couple of days and after you're exposed and maybe carrying positive. So the whole testing challenge is one of the elements the governor says that we need to do better at before she will begin reopening Oregon. Those criteria, as I recall, are that we continue to flatten the curve, which is to say fewer people test positive, that we increase our testing ability, that we have more PPE, that's personal protective equipment, available, and we're starting to finally generate the equipment that we need to protect our healthcare workers and our essential workers with that kind of equipment. And then the final criteria would be that we have a viable process that if you are exposed, that we can figure out who you also may have exposed along the way, a tracking process. And the governor says those are the elements that she's looking for before she begins to reopen us on a broad basis. That's a long answer to the question of what are we doing about testing, but I think it fits into the larger picture of we need more testing so that we can get back to normal.
Right. So sticking on the coronavirus theme, where are we at as far as masks? Wearing them, not wearing them? There seems to be a lot of information or misinformation on that as well.
Well, you know, there's talk about issuing an order that everybody who goes out in public should wear a mask. We have not taken that step, but it's a good idea. And it's a good idea because, as I said, you may be positive without showing any symptoms yet, and wearing a mask will dramatically reduce the likelihood that you would spread the virus to somebody else. It also somewhat affects your ability to contract the virus, but not nearly as much as it reduces your ability to spread the virus. Did I say that right? Wearing it will help other people a lot. Wearing it will help you a little. At the end of the day, it's a good idea to wear a mask, and we're seeing a lot of people using creative approaches to doing that. People sewing masks, people buying masks, people gifting masks. We've published plans on how you can make a mask out of a bandana or a handkerchief if you don't have any sewing skills. The really high quality medical grade masks are being reserved primarily for people in the healthcare environment, but there's all kinds of other options out there, and I strongly encourage people to use them.
All right, so we've got a follow-up question from Marcy. There are many people with autism that cannot wear a mask. They are very concerned about an ordinance being passed.
There's a lot of people for whom it's a physical problem, and that's why I would not like to see us get to mandatory masks. I'd like to see using good judgment as much as possible, and that includes not forcing them on people that they don't work for, but it also means that if you are in a vulnerable population group, that you stay home and grow a beard more than getting out in public.
All right, so I don't see any other questions, so I'm going to ask a follow-up. What do you need from us? Is there a way that we can guarantee that we get our share of piece of the pie of this stimulus money or anything from the state? What would you suggest that we do to help you out?
Wow, well, I really appreciate that question. You know, so many of the decisions are coming from the federal level. And we're on these calls every day with our federal delegation. I have been on phone calls with Senator Merkley, Senator Wyden, and Congressman Schrader, and I know you have as well on behalf of your membership. And we have tried to deliver the message that more of these benefits need to come to smaller companies, and that there are problems with the delivery system. Here's an example that I gave to Merkley and Schrader, and I think, frankly, based on their reaction, I surprised them a little bit, that the EIDL qualifications were based on the number of employees you've got, and that was a count done in January. Well, here at the coast, you don't have as many employees in January as you do in August. Whether you're a restaurateur or a hotel operator or a fisherman or a dairyman, you don't need as many employees in the winter as you do in the summer. So that small rule may have skewed the benefits against us. The federal government is one layer. The next layer is the state level, and I'm operating there, and I am involved there with annoying frequency. I am participating in these conversations, and I'm doing my very best to carry our message of how we are uniquely affected and how we need some unique attention to spur our recovery. And you can help me by continuing to bring me examples of the kinds of challenges that we need to address at the state level. The third answer is that you're also operating at a local level, and you have got great relationships with your city councilors, with your county commissioners, with your mayor, and help them understand the challenges that our businesses are facing. And you know, I'm hearing from people that are worried about the visitors that are coming over here. I have people that write to me every day and say we should put up roadblocks and the state police should scan people before we let them come to the coast. Wow, martial law. But we're also hearing that people are breaking the rules, that they're coming here, and that we have people that are renting out rooms that they shouldn't be, or renting out VRDs that they shouldn't be, and that is exposing us. It's risking that the whole process will take longer to resolve. And as usual, the people that break the rules make more money than the people that follow them. So put some pressure on our local government to try and address those kinds of problems. You know, at the end of the day, our chambers are invaluable, and we've got a great network out here. Dave Price is off the phone, so I'm glad he won't hear me say that I believe he is the best of the SBDC directors in the state. And Heather Dessard over at WorkSource is doing remarkable work round the clock, trying to help our local businesses and our local workers. And you're part of that whole process as well, getting the news out to people and helping communicate, stemming the rumors and sharing good information. I think one of our challenges is that we've got so much information coming at us that it's hard to filter it. And it's hard to get the best information in front of people without having it smothered by all the other information. So I know that you had Leslie Ogden on the phone with members just a few days ago. I'm glad for this opportunity, but yeah, rumor control, good information, and doing what you do best, which is gather information from your many members and deliver it to people who can use it to make decisions.
All right, well, thank you so much. Does anybody else have any questions or any follow-up? All right, just one more thought. You know, there's been a lot of recovery help or grants or whatever that a lot of businesses here have kind of fallen in that crack. To qualify, you have to have 3 or more employees. So, you know, yeah, like you mentioned, we have a lot of very small businesses. So, you know, if you can kind of hammer that point through that, yeah, there are more people that need that kind of gap funding, and they're the ones that are really in dire need at this point.
Well, absolutely. I mean, I'm a micro business guy. You've heard me say this over and over again. I don't think there's 5 people in the Capitol that actually own a cash register. And that brings a unique perspective to the decisions that we make, whether it's transit payroll taxes or unemployment or sick leave or family leave and all these other questions, or just the way that they are processed. I lean on the employment division that if we pass a new payroll tax for transit, that we roll it into other taxes rather than making our smallest businesses write another check and keep another account month after month after month. Those are real life things that just drag you down when you're a mom and pop trying to deal with the paperwork, and it gets in the way of you dealing with your customers. So I try to deliver the message about our smallest businesses. Let me finish up today by telling you that this time tomorrow, I will be meeting with the State Emergency Board. Now, some of you are going to scratch your head and say, what the heck is that? When the legislature is not in session, there is a subgroup called the Emergency Board, and they are empowered to spend money out of a designated account. That account right now has about $50 million in it. Now, we're well situated here in Lincoln County because I'm on the Emergency Board, and our Senator, Arnie Roebland, is also on the Emergency Board. So we get 2 members, 2 voices at the table. There are proposals coming forward to deal with rent assistance and emergency housing. There are more special programs designed for small businesses and to help the people that have fallen through the federal cracks. There is money to provide emergency housing for domestic and sexual violence. There is money for fighting forest fires. Those are some of the big ticket items that are on our agenda for tomorrow. I'll tell you, I'm a little bit frustrated. I was talking with Susie and I described this situation with the Emergency Board much like one of the programs we see on the Home and Garden channel, where somebody comes in and they redesign your house and they do a lot of renovations and you're the homeowner, and it's not till 5 minutes to the end of the program that they bring you in for the big reveal. Well, the big reveal is that we've got these 11 items we're going to be voting on tomorrow, and unless it's gone up in the last hour, the details have not yet been posted publicly. But the agenda is on the Oregon Legislative Information System called OLIS, and you can go there and you can see it, and soon you will see the proposals that are coming forward. I have spoken with the Speaker of the House about her proposals and what we're going to be voting on. I will tell you that I think they're good for Oregon, but I also think that while they're good for Oregon, that they're not as good, excuse me, for our part of Oregon. They're not bad for us. They just help other people a little bit more than they help us. And that's the frustration that I keep taking to Salem, that we're suffering out here. Excuse me, that's a talking at the computer cough, not a COVID cough. That we're suffering out here, and it's hard for me to go in and say we deserve a disproportionate amount of relief, but you know what? We deserve a disproportionate amount of the relief, and that's the message that I'm trying to take forward in these very difficult conversations.
All right, thank you very much for that, David. So one follow-up question, is anyone at the state level considering extra help for Oregon's tourism-based communities?
Wow. Well, again, I'm going to answer that in kind of a convoluted way. People aren't coming here right now, so they're not staying in our hotels, so we're not collecting transient lodging taxes. Lodging taxes are down, and those are some of the best tools that we have long-term to encourage more people to come here when we're getting better. So we're going to be short there. People aren't driving, so we're not collecting gasoline taxes. My God, gasoline's under $2 a gallon, but nobody's driving, or fewer people are driving, so we're not getting the gas taxes that we need to maintain our roads. Nobody's playing video poker, so we're not collecting our lottery dollars that are used for economic development. And of course, fewer people are working. That means that we're not collecting as many taxes for income. So we're going to be hit across the board with revenue shortfalls in the next 2 years. And that's going to be income taxes, that's going to be gasoline taxes, it's going to be lottery revenues, it's going to be lodging taxes. The only place that we're actually making more money right now at the state level is on alcohol and cannabis. But those are not big chunks of money that are going to offset the places that we're falling short. So I'm worried about how we promote tourism in the coming months when our revenues are down and we've been discouraging people from coming here, and we need to teach them all over again why they should be coming to the beach and when they should be coming to the beach. I guess the good news is I think there's a lot of pent-up angst. The best evidence of that is people who are willing to break the rules to come here now. People want to come to the beach, and there is going to be an influx when the restrictions are lifted. So let's take advantage of that. It's going to be really hard to gear up overnight and be ready for them, but I think we need to be prepared to do that.
All right, well, thank you so much. I know it's complicated on all sides of this issue and a lot of strong feelings on all sides of this issue, but thank you very much for your involvement, your guidance. I'm very glad to have you here close. You always take my calls, so I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you all for all that you do. Keep doing good things, and it's hard. We're all in this together. It's hurting some people more than it's hurting other people, but we're all suffering, and we can all help each other get through it and start returning to whatever the new normal is going to be.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining the call, and thank you, David, for all of your words of wisdom, and hang in there. We'll get through this together, and we will have a new normal, but some things may be better. We don't know.
Thanks again, everybody.
All right. Thank you.